To the Point with Michael Williams.
Good morning. The immigration story, including the surge in migrants we're seeing trying to reach our South Florida shores. That's our topic this morning. My guest today, Jeffrey Devore, who specializes in immigration and nationality law. And sir, we appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a story that is ongoing. We've seen in the last many months hundreds, really thousands of Cuban migrants trying to reach our shores, other nationalities as well, Haitian and from other Caribbean nations as well. And of course, there's the backdrop of what's going on at the U.S.-Mexico border. But we'll concentrate our focus on what's going on here. Talk about the surge. Are you surprised we're seeing it? What are the factors behind it? And does U.S. policy itself have anything to do with the sudden surge we're seeing? Compare what's going on in Cuba and here, and how all that combines with what we're seeing now.
Well, I'm not surprised that we're seeing that. People have always wanted to leave Cuba, so there's always been a steady stream, if you will, of people coming, to the United States. The economic situation in Cuba has become dreadful. Is probably a generous word, an understatement. Yeah, very, very difficult. And also, of course, the political situation, is very unstable as well. So because of that, we're seeing people taking that trip and wanting to move sooner rather than later.
I've traveled there many times, covering stories there over the years, and it's a tough situation. Strong people, but a government that since the dawn of the Castro regime and all the way up till today has created a life for people that many have said, we want to get off this island. Nonetheless, we are seeing a surge right now. What does that mean in terms of immigration policy? There's a lot of confusion. It used to be back in the days post-Castro till about 94, 95, that if you came here, really pretty much automatically paroled, could begin to work, apply for work, and then eventually residency and citizenship. Then wet foot, dry foot in 1994, 95. If you reached U.S. shores, you could stay. If not, you'd be turned back. Then in 2017, wet foot, dry foot. That went away, and yet it's not stopped the surge we're seeing now. Talk about policy and the confusion we may have. What is the status of somebody from Cuba trying to come to our shores right now?
Well, the status of somebody from Cuba trying to come to the shores, once again, depends on how they get to the United States and where they enter the country.
All right, let's say they come by boat, by raft.
If they come by boat and they manage to make it here to the U.S., then as a practical matter, they're allowed to stay, right? And they're still paroled into the United States.
As a practical matter, so that's different than a legal matter. Why do you put that?
Well, because technically Cuba does not take any repatriations back in that instance, right? Many other countries, for example, you see there's a big difference in the Haitian population, which has always been a complaint of the Haitian community. Somebody from Haiti arrives by boat, then very often then they're sent back to Haiti rather quickly. We do have from 1966 what a law called the Cuban Adjustment Act, which allows a Cuban national who has been paroled or admitted into the United States and has been physically present here for 1 year, allows them to become permanent resident of the United States and maintain lawful status. So it hasn't been an equitable situation between the Cuban community and others because of this law that's there.
So you say as a practical matter, often paroled here. Is that what is going to keep happening now? Is Cuba saying it's willing to take repatriated Cubans back to the island? Many here would not want to see that for a lot of emotional and other reasons, but as a practical and legal matter, what's likely to happen?
Well, it's an interesting situation. Traditionally, Cuba has not taken back people. So we have, for example, Cubans maybe that have been here that have been ordered deported, but we have no way of actually sending them back to Cuba. They would take very, very limited number of repatriations, right? Now the Biden administration has come out with this parole program where they're allowing people to remain in the United States provided that they apply in advance and get permission to come to the country, and we can talk a little bit about that in a few minutes if you'd like. But because they're coming in advance, it's pre-approved, they're allowed to stay. But the Biden administration has also said, look, if you just show up here at the border, we're not going to allow you into the country. And Mexico has agreed to take Cubans back, okay? And also Cuba, in some instances, has agreed to take some people back as well. So it remains to be seen what Cuba's going to actually do.
But again, many Cubans are willing to make that very arduous, very dangerous journey to get here. And is this policy likely, in your estimation, to stop that?
Well, it's an interesting situation. The parole program is modeled after the Venezuelan parole program that we've had now for a few months. Many Venezuelans were arriving at the Mexican border wanting to apply for asylum. And, once again, this was a very treacherous trip as well for them. What happened was after the administration put this parole program in place where they have a U.S. sponsor, they apply in advance, everything's approved, they get a travel document which allows them to come to the United States, and when they arrive here, they're eligible to get a work permit. That has cut down significantly on the number of Venezuelans showing up at the border. So the administration is hoping that by doing this for Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans, that it will have the same result.
For now, as a practical matter, as we continue, we've had footage we've been shown. We can show footage of Cuban migrants who've been coming here, some being processed in Riviera Beach and elsewhere. Again, let's go back as a practical matter. Tomorrow, another boat, Cuban migrants, lands, makes it to U.S. shores. What's the most likely route, given the freeze that we have in U.S.-Cuba policy, given the practicalities, given the history, what's likely to happen?
I think for Cubans that arrive here on the shore of Florida, most of them are going to be paroled into the United States. I don't think they're going to be sent back at that point. I don't think that we have the mechanism right now in place under that situation for Cuba to accept repatriations.
And some will say, given what's going on as you look at people risking their lives out on the high seas, that that's a good thing. Others argue that we have to have a much more sane policy and that what you've described is sending a lot of mixed signals. Well, here's what happens, but if you get here, you're going to be able to stay. A great many people in our Cuban American community and beyond, for humanitarian reasons, given the awful conditions in these places, say, great. It's that constant struggle and debate, though. And are we sending from a purely policy point of view and legal point of view mixed signals to the Cubas and to other countries with our policy?
I think there is a mixed signal. I think you have to look at this in that people want to come anyways, right? So do we want them to come in an orderly fashion? This is what President Biden has said before, that, I want to get control of the border. I want things to be done in an orderly way. That is what the parole program is trying to do. It's not necessarily preventing people from coming, but it's trying to manage how they arrive in the United States.
You talked earlier in the conversation, there's long been frustration, and among other communities, our Haitian community saying, disparate treatment. They come, they're repatriated. Talk about that.
Okay. Well, as I said, we do have a law, the Cuban Adjustment Act, which provides in certain circumstances for Cubans to become permanent residents after they've been here for 1 year. That is a law that is specific just to Cubans. Some people say it's a relic from the Cold War era, but it's an option that's available for Cuban citizens. It is not available for anybody else. So, we do see a lot of large migration from Haiti. Right? We don't have that shortcut, so to speak, available for Haitians.
As an immigration lawyer, talk holistically about what I'm missing, what you see in terms of the crisis from that humanitarian point of view, but what you see as the fixes that we need to have a more sane, straightforward policy moving forward.
Well, Congress really has to do some sort of comprehensive immigration reform. The laws that we have on the book now are basically framework from 1952. The last time we really had a serious update to our laws was back in 1990, so that was over 30 years ago. The world is not the same place it was 2 years ago, let alone 30 years ago. So we need some significant immigration reform.
What would that look like to you?
That would look like a situation where we put a situation in where we were able to get the workers that we need. Right. Okay, this is one of the major complaints that I see from employers that I deal with is that they can't find workers.
And we're hypocritical if we don't note that a lot of migrants who are here who may not be legal or barely legal are supplementing a workforce that would not have a lot of workers without them. That's worth noting.
That is absolutely correct. Okay, there are many people here that are, whether they're here lawfully, or not, that are doing the type of jobs that Americans just don't want to do.
So within there, are there the seeds of what you see as possible reform, given the need for workers, the fact that we kind of turn a blind eye to the reality we just talked about? What are the seeds within that construct for a policy that makes more sense?
Well, I think, employers are lobbying Congress, okay, in order to make more visas available and to make them available in a way that it makes sense for an employer to be able to get, okay? Obviously there needs to be protections for the foreign workers. We don't want anybody being taken advantage of by unscrupulous employers. Okay?
And you don't, and there will be those who say you don't want American citizens to be taking a back seat on jobs. That's a big part of the immigration.
That is absolutely correct.
So all those pieces have to be part of that.
Correct, and there are pieces that are in place for that right now. Those need to be expanded. They also need to be modernized.
Yep.
Okay. Just by way of an example, when we we want to fill a job with a foreign worker, one of the requirements is that we have to advertise the position for U.S. workers to apply. Right now, the Department of Labor that administers that program requires that the advertisement be done in the newspaper. Okay. The reality is most people do not go looking in the newspaper anymore for a job. Most of them are looking online. Okay. So the programs need to be modernized as part of this, but this all goes back to the law needing to be reformed.
We're going to have you back again. Final thought, because it's such a complex topic, but I appreciate you giving us a bit of an overlay for it. Final thought.
Well, Congress needs to reform our immigration laws. We just are following policies that are out of date. The world has become a different place. And that's really where this has to start, and Congress has to decide what they're going to do. Until Congress actually takes some sort of action, we're going to be putting Band-Aids on the system for a long time to come.
Jeffrey Devore, immigration attorney, we appreciate very much you giving us a perspective. We'll look forward to having you back. A most complicated topic, one fraught with emotion and many other challenges as well. Thanks for taking a few minutes with us.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, the changing faces on the Palm Beach County Commission and the political impact.